Mr Frost by Hogan. When anyone asks whether it's Greenpeace chuggers or energy firms trying to sell me loft insulation, I tell them I'm not worried about global warming. They tut and shake their heads, and as they turn away, having dismissed me for the foolish woman I appear, I rub the numbed patch of whitened skin on the heel of my hand and think back to the coldest night I've ever known. "Too cold to snow," called out the big issue seller as I scurried towards the waiting bus. A silly thing to say, I've always thought. But as I glanced into the night sky, a sky that had been so grey and heavy during the day, I saw a scattering of little diamonds beyond the bright street lights. Stars. There'd be no snow tonight, but it was a fair bet it was going to get a lot colder. As soon as I got home, I cranked up the heating and I was just getting comfy when there's a tentative knock at the front door. Now, tentative knocks don't hardly compete with the Great British Bake Off, so naturally I ignored it and burrowed a little deeper into the pile of fleece blankets. But there it came again, a little louder, a little more insistent. Blow me, thinks I, who could that be? And there isn't really much option but to slip on my fluffy bunny slippers and shuffle to the door and find out. First thing I think when I open it is that the big issue seller is wrong after all. There's a full moon now, and everything, the hedge, the short path to the street, the parked cars, even the rooftops across the way, is a dazzling white. But then I twig that, 'cause the white is sparkling, it's frost, not snow. But a frost like I've never seen before. I can't help myself. "Frost," I say. There's a lad, barely more than a boy, stood on the front step, the timid knocker upon doors. He's got his open hand extended, so I reach across to shake it as I look at him more closely. He's about my height, thin as a rake, and wearing a shiny short-sleeved shirt. I'm just beginning to wonder how cold he must be in that get-up, because I'm shivering just looking at him, when there's a sharp burning pain in my hand, and I yelp and pull away from his soft grasp as he's saying, "I'm sorry to disturb you, ma'am." "Oh my," I exclaim, "you poor mite, you're frozen. Come in, we'll get you sorted." And I'm pushing him into the hallway and slamming the door behind, kicking the sausage dog draft excluder back into place to stop the biting cold that's swirling round my ankles. "Come through," I say. And before I've even thought twice, we're in my lounge. The Christmas fairy lights twinkling away, and there's my nest, my sofa buried beneath its blankets and cushions and spare pillows. It looks a right mess. I can feel a flush coming to my cheeks, despite the chill that has followed us in from the outside, and I hastily push a pile of magazines and romantic novels off Bob's armchair. The stranger perches on the edge, looking uncomfortable and out of place and ever so slightly blue. "So, what did you say your name was again, pet?" I ask. He looks at me, a lost look on his face, and I feel for him, I really do. I've always had a soft spot for runts. It's me the youngest kids come to when there's been a dust-up in the school canteen. Me who takes them aside and lets them wipe their snotty noses on my pinging. The other dinner ladies all have kids or grandkids of their own, but me, I resist the urge to bound over and enfold him in my arms, because I'm sensitive too. He's probably 17 or something, and he'd be mortally offended. "My name?" he says. His accent is most peculiar, like someone who's learnt English by watching American TV. "I'm Mr Frost," he says. If he'd said it with a small grin, or with puppy dog eyes, or with a quiver of the lips, I'd have thrown him out for a cheeky bugger. But he says it flat and truthful. Like David, I say. And he nods his head and continues looking up at me. His pale features make me worry he's ill. Like maybe he's been out in the cold too long. But where's me manners, I say. I'm Maggie. Please, make yourself comfortable. Can I get you a cup of tea? Tea? He echoes blankly. Maybe he's simple. That gives me a shudder. Yes, or coffee, I say slowly. A hot drink? He positively beams at that. Smiles like the world, nay, the universe, is suddenly all right again. And my nerves at having such an odd stranger in my little terraced house quickly fade away. A hot drink, Mr Frost says with solemn gravity, is the greatest gift of friendship that anyone can give another. Well now, I thinks to myself, it's the dark chocolate hobnobs for you, my silver-tongued friend. When I come back from the kitchen, he's still sat there, ramrod straight on the edge of the chair, watching the bakers hovering over their ovens. I put the tea and biscuits down on a copy of OK, and he eagerly takes the steaming mug in both hands. So what brings you out on such a night? I ask, as I lean against the arm of the sofa, rubbing warmth back into my hand, which still feels cold and wooden to the touch. He gives a gentle smile. I'm on a mission. You're never one of those Mormons, I exclaim. And then I realise how rude that might sound. Not that I have anything against them, you understand. No, he says. I'm not a Mormon. I'm Roman Catholic myself, but I don't go to church anymore. I was married in one, though. Are you recruiting or collecting? I ask. He looks up at me with misty white eyes and says, collecting. I have a quota. I'd help you out, love, if I had any to spare, but it's a week to payday. You should try the neighbours, though. They've just splashed out on a 42-inch. He nods, but I have an odd feeling he has no idea of what I'm talking about. I don't usually see your lot around here, I say, into the sudden silence, punctuated only by the muted tones of Paul Hollywood. First time, he says. It's an experiment. I ponder for a moment. You might do OK. Bit of a mixed bag this street. There's council flats at the far end on the left, but the rest of us are all right, if not exactly flush. Not like next door. Look, I can lend you a winter coat as long as you promise to bring it back. Is it all right if I just stay here? He says, poor little tyke. Of course it is, I say, thinking how cruel it is to force him to go door to door on a cold night like this. Stay here as long as you like, pet. I'll just go crank up the heating another notch. I could swear it's getting colder in here. I can't really remember everything we talked about. I did ask him how many there were at his mission, and he said 20, which seemed quite small, though he said that would rise to about 1,000 if all went well. He told me where he came from. I can't remember the name, but he said it was so cold they had to go a long way looking for new sources of heat for places that had too much. But I suspect it was mainly me talking, usually is. The bake-off finished, and then the programme after, so he must have been there more than an hour. I probably talked his pointy little ears off, I'm sure I did. But then I don't have too many visitors, and I do like a good natter. I have to admit to snuggling back down onto the sofa, guest or no guest. My, it was cold that night. I was just thinking about putting the lecky blanket on when there's a bleep from his odd-looking wristwatch, and he ups and rises, gives a little half bow, and says, Maggie, thank you for your warm hospitality. I shall not forget it. And I plough my way back up through the blankets and straighten my skirt as he once again offers his hand. Gee fuss, I say, as I quickly let go. You're still ice cold. You're like my ex, a real heat vampire he was. Mr Frost blinks at me, a strange look in his eye. So of course I explain. Just our funny little term, I said. Bob always had cold hands and cold feet. He'd make me yelp when we went to bed, and he'd put his feet on mine, but he'd just leave them there and say he was stealing my heat. I took to wearing wool socks, not to stay warm, but to protect myself from him. Well, that was a long time ago. Turns out he had a cold heart and all. But you mustn't listen to a crazy woman like me. You sure you won't borrow that coat? You can bring it back next time. He shook his head. I won't be coming back this way, he said. I collect from a different area each time. So I showed him out into the winter wonderland of Frost and waved him on his way, shouting, Happy Christmas! as an afterthought, and then worrying if Mormons had a Christmas. First thing I did after heading back inside, beyond going boo, was to duck into the kitchen to crank up the thermostat again. But it was already on max, and it was still bloody cold. I headed back to the lounge for the 10 o'clock news, and to bury myself under as many layers as I could, picking up a hobnob from the untouched plate on the way. Too polite, that was Mr Frost's problem, I thought. Too polite, but... And then I backtracked and slowly, carefully, picked up the full mug of tea I'd made for him, turning it over until it was upside down. It was frozen solid. Now, I'm not a well-travelled woman. France, on a school exchange back when the Eurostar was just a twinkle in an engineer's eye, and once, but never again, to Corfu. And I don't class myself as educated either. Not like those Greenpeace Johnnies with their university degrees who don't even bother listening to what I have to say. So feel free to disagree with me all you want. But when I say I'm not worried about global warming, it's not that I don't believe in it. I'm no climate sceptic. I mean exactly what I say. I know it exists, but I don't worry. Because there's a factor those scientists with their fancy models haven't taken into account. Mr Frost, his 1,000 friends, and their quotas. So, if you're experiencing a sudden cold snap, or a sharp frost where you are, look out for a thin young man in a shiny shirt with a bluish tinge to his skin, and invite him in. Crank up the thermostat, offer him a hot drink, and let him stay as long as he wants. But don't shake his hand, not if you don't want frostbite. And when he leaves, remember to thank him. He might just save our planet.